They say that somewhere in the universe, invisible red strings tie two souls together no matter the distance, no matter the time, no matter how impossible their meeting may seem. Ariana Vale had always believed in that. She believed in destiny the way she believed in sunrise inevitable, gentle and certain. As an artist, she painted stories of strangers finding each other, of hands almost touching, of threads of red woven into every canvas. To her, love was not something you searched for. It was something that would always find its way. Lucia Moreau believed in none of it. Love for her was coincidence, timing, choice, nothing more. A woman of logic and order, she trusted only what she could see, what she could prove, what she could control. Fate was merely a comforting lie people told themselves to make heartbreak easier. Two women, two different beliefs, one invisible thread neither of them could see. Their lives first crossed on a rainy afternoon, a fleeting moment, a brush of hands while reaching for the same book, a spark neither could explain. They were strangers then, walking separate paths, unaware that their meeting had already been written long before they were born, because the red string does not ask permission. It does not wait for belief, it only pulls, and sometimes destiny ties together the two people who resist it the most. This is the story of Ariana Vale and Lucia Moreau, two hearts bound by a thread they cannot break, a love that time will test, and a fate that refuses to let them go. Rain fell softly over the city, turning the streets into mirrors of blurred lights and passing shadows. People hurried beneath umbrellas, chasing time, chasing destinations, unaware of the invisible threads guiding their steps. Inside a quiet bookstore tucked between two old buildings, Ariana Vale carefully placed a finished painting against the display wall. Crimson lines danced across the canvas, tangled yet beautiful, connecting two faceless figures reaching for each other. Still obsessed with fate? The shop owner teased gently. Ariana smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Not obsessed, she said softly. Just convinced. To her, love was never random. Every meeting had meaning. Every encounter carried a reason. Somewhere, someone was always meant to find you. She just didn't know when. Or who. Across town, Lucia Moreau walked quickly through the rain, her heels striking the pavement with precise rhythm. Her mind was occupied with schedules, responsibilities, and the comforting certainty of logic. Her world had no space for destiny. Everything in life, she believed, was the result of decisions, not invisible forces. People met because of circumstance. Love happened because of timing. Nothing more. She stopped when the rain suddenly poured heavier, forcing her to duck into the nearest building. A bookstore. Lucia sighed quietly, shaking droplets from her coat as she stepped inside. The scent of paper and coffee filled the air. It was warm, peaceful, temporary shelter. Nothing significant. Or so she thought. Ariana stood on a ladder in the same moment, reaching for a book on the highest shelf, a collection about ancient myths of soulmates and the red string of fate. Her fingers brushed, the spine just as another hand reached for it from the opposite side. Warm skin met warm skin. Both froze. The book slipped slightly between them as their eyes met through the narrow gap of the shelf. For a second, the world fell silent. A strange feeling, sudden, electric, unfamiliar, rushed through Ariana's chest. Something pulled deep inside her, like an invisible thread tightening. Lucia immediately withdrew her hand. "Sorry," she said, her voice calm but unusually soft. "It's okay," Ariana replied, though her heart continued racing for reasons she couldn't explain. They stared at each other for a brief moment longer, curiosity meeting restraint, belief meeting doubt. Then Lucia took the book, gave a polite nod, and walked away. A simple encounter, a forgettable moment. At least that was what Lucia told herself. But as she stepped outside minutes later, she felt a strange pull in her chest, an unexplainable sense that she had just left something important behind. Inside the bookstore, Ariana stood frozen, her fingers lightly touching the place where their hands had met. She had painted countless red strings in her life. For the first time, she thought she felt one. Neither of them knew that this was only the beginning, because once the red string tightens, it never loosens again. Lucia Moreau did not believe in coincidence. Yet for 3 days, she found herself passing by the same bookstore. The first time, she told herself it was simply the fastest route home. The second time, she claimed she had forgotten something nearby. By the third, even she could no longer explain why her steps slowed each time she walked past the glass window. Inside, she sometimes caught a glimpse of a woman arranging books, her movements gentle, almost careful, as if she treated every object like something precious. Lucia always walked away before she could think too much about it. Meanwhile, Ariana Vale could not forget the woman from the rain. She tried to paint, but her hands moved differently now, her brush, unconsciously tracing thin red lines, connecting two figures standing closer than before. She did not even realize she was doing it until the painting was finished. A feeling lingered in her chest, a quiet certainty. She'll come back. Ariana did not know why she believed it. She simply did. On the fourth day, Lucia stepped inside the bookstore again. She told herself she needed a book. Nothing more. The bell above the door chimed softly, and Ariana looked up from behind the counter. Their eyes met instantly, as if both had been expecting the other. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Lucia cleared her throat. "I'm looking for philosophy books." Ariana smiled gently, stepping forward. "Trying to find answers?" Lucia gave a small, polite smile. "Trying to find facts." The difference between them hung quietly in the air. Ariana led her through narrow aisles filled with towering shelves. As they walked side by side, their hands brushed again, light, accidental contact. That strange feeling returned. A sudden warmth, a pull neither understood. Lucia stepped slightly away. Ariana pretended not to notice. They stopped in front of a shelf filled with books about fate, connection, and human bonds. Lucia raised an eyebrow. "This is philosophy?" "In a way," Ariana answered. "Some people believe destiny is the oldest philosophy, and some people prefer evidence," Lucia replied calmly. Ariana tilted her head, studying her. "Have you never felt something you couldn't explain?" Lucia hesitated. For a brief second, she remembered the moment their hands first touched the strange spark she had tried so hard to ignore. She closed the thought immediately. "No," she answered firmly. Ariana simply smiled, as if she knew the truth would come later. As Lucia prepared to leave, her gaze fell on a painting, displayed near the counter too. Figures connected by a delicate, red thread wrapped around their fingers. Something in her chest tightened. "What does it mean?" she asked quietly. Ariana walked beside her. "It's called the red string theory," she said. "It says two people destined to meet are connected by an invisible thread. It may stretch, tangle, or pull them apart, but it never breaks." Lucia stared at the painting longer than she intended. "Sounds like a comforting illusion," she finally said. "Or a promise," Ariana replied softly. Their eyes met again, and somewhere between belief and doubt, something invisible trembled. That night, Lucia dreamed for the first time in years. A thin red thread wrapped around her finger, leading somewhere she could not see. When she woke, her heart was racing, and for the first time, logic offered no explanation. The thread had begun to tighten. Lucia tried to forget. She buried herself in work, numbers, meetings, and schedules, the familiar rhythm of control. Yet no matter how busy she became, her thoughts drifted back to the quiet bookstore. And the woman with gentle eyes who spoke of destiny like it was real. It irritated her. It unsettled her. And worst of all, it intrigued her. By the end of the week, she returned again. Ariana noticed her immediately. She did not look surprised. She simply smiled, as if welcoming someone who had always been meant to arrive. "You came back," Ariana said softly. Lucia placed a book on the counter, avoiding her gaze. "I finished the last one." A lie. She hadn't even opened it. Ariana accepted the book anyway, her fingers lightly brushing Lucia's hand as she took it. That same warmth spread through both of them, stronger now, harder to ignore. Lucia quickly withdrew. "Do you always believe strangers are meant to meet?" she asked suddenly. Ariana thought for a moment. "Not all strangers," she answered. "Only the ones who feel familiar." The words lingered between them. Lucia had no response. Days slowly turned into a quiet routine. Lucia began visiting the bookstore regularly, sometimes to buy books, sometimes to ask questions, sometimes with no reason at all. Their conversations grew longer, moving from philosophy to art, from logic to dreams, from arguments to laughter. They were opposites in every way. Ariana believed in signs. Lucia believed in choice. Ariana followed feelings. Lucia trusted reason. And yet, something continued pulling them closer. One evening, while walking together outside the shop, their hands brushed again, but this time neither pulled away immediately. The world seemed to pause. A gentle tension passed between their fingers, like a thread tightening. Lucia slowly stepped back, her expression conflicted. "This doesn't make sense," she whispered. Ariana simply looked at her. Not everything has to. For the first time in years, Lucia felt afraid of something she could not explain. Not Ariana, but what she was beginning to feel. That night, Ariana painted again. This time, the red string in her artwork was no longer thin or distant. It was tangled tightly between two figures standing face to face, and for the first time she painted their eyes. The thread was growing stronger. Neither of them could stop it. The closer they became, the more Lucia resisted. She began keeping her distance, shorter visits, fewer conversations, colder responses. She told herself it was necessary, safe, logical. Feelings without explanation were dangerous. Ariana noticed the change immediately. "You're avoiding me," she said gently one afternoon. Lucia looked away. I'm being realistic. About what? About boundaries, Lucia answered. About not confusing coincidence with destiny. A quiet sadness passed through Ariana's eyes. Does it scare you? She asked softly. Lucia did not answer. Because it did. Days passed without seeing each other. The bookstore felt emptier to Ariana. Her paintings grew heavier, filled with stretched red threads pulled painfully across distance. Meanwhile, Lucia found herself restless. She stopped sleeping well. She avoided passing the bookstore, yet every street seemed to lead her there. Every thought circled back to the same person she was trying to forget. It was as if something inside her refused to let go. One stormy evening, unable to resist the pull any longer, Lucia returned. The shop was closing. Ariana stood alone near the window, watching the rain, the same rain from the day they first met. You said it never breaks, Lucia said quietly. Ariana turned. The red string? Lucia nodded, her voice trembling slightly. What if one person cuts it? Ariana stepped closer. Then it finds a way to tie itself again. Silence filled the space between them. Lucia's chest tightened. Why do I feel this? She whispered, almost helpless. Ariana reached forward, stopping just before their hands touched. Because some connections choose us. For a moment, Lucia closed her eyes, and instead of resisting, she allowed her hand to rest against Ariana's. The warmth returned, stronger than ever. But with it came something else. Fear of how deeply they were already tied. Outside, the rain continued to fall. Inside, the invisible thread wrapped tighter around their hearts, and neither of them knew how painful destiny could become. After that night, something between Ariana and Lucia changed. The distance Lucia once forced between them slowly disappeared, replaced by quiet moments that neither dared to define. She began staying longer at the bookstore, sometimes helping Ariana organize shelves, sometimes simply sitting nearby while reading. Silence between them no longer felt empty. It felt full, warm, dangerously comfortable. One evening, Ariana invited Lucia to see her art studio, a small room. Above the bookstore, filled with unfinished canvases and soft golden light, Lucia stepped inside cautiously, her eyes wandering across dozens of paintings. Every piece carried the same symbol, red threads weaving through strangers, wrapping around hands, connecting hearts. Then she noticed something that made her stop. A painting of two women standing beneath the rain, a thin red string tied around their fingers. The resemblance was unmistakable. You painted this after we met? Lucia asked quietly. Ariana hesitated, then nodded. I paint what I feel. Lucia stared at the canvas, her chest tightening. You don't even know me. Ariana's voice was gentle. I know how you make me feel. The honesty in her words shook Lucia more than anything else. She had spent her life trusting logic, building walls, protecting herself from uncertainty. Yet standing there, surrounded by evidence of a connection she could not explain, those walls began to tremble. Days turned into weeks. They shared late-night conversations, long walks, quiet laughter. Ariana taught Lucia how to see beauty in uncertainty, while Lucia grounded Ariana when her dreams drifted too far. They balanced each other, and somewhere in between, love quietly began to grow. Neither confessed it, but both felt it. One night while walking home together, the city lights flickering around them, Lucia suddenly stopped. "Ariana," she whispered. Their hands were already intertwined, something that had slowly become natural. Lucia looked at their joined fingers, her voice barely steady. "I still don't believe in destiny." Ariana smiled softly. "You don't have to." Lucia lifted her gaze. "But I believe in this." Before fear could return, she leaned forward and kissed Ariana. It was gentle, hesitant, real, a moment suspended in time. And somewhere unseen, the red string pulled tighter than ever. But destiny does not give love without testing it, and the thread that binds can also wound. Happiness, Ariana learned, can be frighteningly fragile. For a while, their world felt perfect shared mornings, soft laughter, stolen kisses between shelves of books. Even Lucia, once so guarded, began to open her heart in ways she never thought possible. But the deeper the connection grew, the stronger Lucia's fear became. Love meant vulnerability. Love meant losing control. And control was the one thing she could not live without. The conflict came quietly. Lucia received an offer, a prestigious career opportunity overseas, a future built on certainty, structure, and success. The life she had always planned. A life without Ariana. She kept the news to herself at first, hoping the decision would be simple. It wasn't. Every time she tried to imagine leaving, her chest ached with an invisible pull dragging her back. The thread refused to loosen. Ariana discovered the truth by accident. A document left open, a plane ticket confirmation, a departure date. Her hands trembled. "You're leaving?" she asked when Lucia returned that night. Lucia froze. "It's just an opportunity," she explained carefully. "It's what I've worked for my entire life." "And us?" Ariana whispered. Silence. The answer was already there. "I can't build my future on something I can't explain," Lucia finally said, her voice shaking despite her effort to stay calm. "Feelings change. Destiny isn't real. I need something certain." Ariana's eyes filled with quiet pain. "What if I'm certain?" Lucia looked away, because she was no longer sure of anything. That night they argued for the first time. Belief against logic, heart against mind, fate against choice. The red string that once connected them now felt stretched painfully between two opposing worlds. "I won't be tied down by something invisible," Lucia said, her voice breaking. Ariana stepped back as if struck. "You think this is a chain," she whispered. "But to me, it's home." Days later, Lucia made her decision. She would leave. The moment the words left her lips, Ariana felt something tear inside her chest, not visible, not physical, but real. For the first time, the red string between them trembled violently, as if close to breaking. The night before Lucia's departure, Ariana painted endlessly. Her hands shook as she drew the red thread fraying between two figures reaching desperately for each other. For the first time, the string in her painting began to snap. But destiny, once awakened, does not surrender easily. Even when hearts break, even when distance grows, the thread remembers. The morning Lucia left, the sky was painfully clear. No rain, no signs, no reason to stay. At the airport, everything felt cold and final. The world moved normally around them, announcements echoing, people rushing, departures unfolding like ordinary moments. But for Ariana, nothing felt ordinary. It felt like losing a part of herself. Lucia stood before her, suitcase beside her, emotions carefully hidden behind practiced calm. Yet her hands trembled slightly, the only sign of the storm inside her. "This is the right choice," Lucia said quietly, as if convincing herself. Ariana nodded, though her heart refused to agree. "Will you be happy?" Lucia hesitated. "I'll be certain," she answered. The words cut deeper than goodbye. They did not argue again. There were no dramatic pleas. No, desperate confessions, only heavy silence and unspoken love lingering between them. When Lucia finally turned to leave, something inside her chest pulled sharply. A sudden, painful tightening. She stopped walking. For a moment, she almost turned back. Almost, but logic pushed her forward. And step by step, she walked away from the one person who had ever made her question everything she believed. From that day on, distance separated them. Different countries, different time zones, different lives. But the connection never disappeared. Lucia tried to focus on work, on success, on the certainty she had chosen. Yet strange things began happening. She would suddenly feel warmth around her finger, like an invisible thread tightening. She dreamed of Ariana almost every night. She found herself staring at strangers who resembled her, her chest aching with unexplained longing. No amount of logic could silence it. The pull remained. Meanwhile, Ariana stayed in the quiet bookstore. She continued painting, but her art had changed. The red strings in her work stretched across vast distances, now tangled, strained yet unbroken. She never spoke of Lucia, but every painting carried her. Every line of red whispered her name. Months passed, yet neither of them truly moved on. Because the red string does not forget, even when separated by oceans, even when denied, even when hearts try to resist. It continues to pull. Winter arrived in Lucia's new city, cold and unforgiving. Her life had everything she once wanted: success, recognition, stability. Yet the emptiness inside her grew heavier each day. One evening, while walking home, she stopped suddenly. A familiar feeling wrapped around her finger, warm, insistent, undeniable. Stronger than ever before, her chest tightened, and for the first time she whispered the truth she had avoided for months. "I miss her." That night, Lucia dreamed again. She stood alone in darkness, a red thread tied around her hand. It stretched endlessly into the distance, frayed, strained, but still holding. She tried to cut it. It tied itself again. She tried to walk away. It pulled her back. At the end of the thread stood Ariana, reaching, waiting, fading. Lucia woke in tears. Logic could no longer protect her. Across the ocean, Ariana experienced the same restless pull. One evening while painting, her hand suddenly froze. The red thread on her canvas glowed vividly under the light, leading beyond the frame as if pointing somewhere far away. Her heart pounded. "He's calling me back," she whispered, correcting herself softly. "She's calling me back." For the first time, doubt entered her belief. What if destiny required action? What if the thread could not hold forever? Days later, Lucia received unexpected news. Her project was being transferred back to her home city for several months. The moment she read the message, her heart raced violently. Coincidence or something else? For the first time, she did not question it. She accepted. On the day she returned, the city welcomed her with gentle rain, just like the day they first met. Lucia found herself standing outside the same quiet bookstore without remembering how she got there. Her hand trembled as she reached for the door. Inside, Ariana looked up. Their eyes met. Time collapsed. Distance vanished. The red string tightened with overwhelming force, but neither knew if love alone could heal what had been broken, or if destiny would give them another chance. The bell above the bookstore door rang softly. Ariana and Lucia stood frozen, staring at each other across the quiet space that had once been their beginning and their ending. Months of distance, months of silence, months of unspoken longing, all collapsing into a single moment. Lucia stepped forward first, her composure gone, her voice unsteady. "I tried to live without you." The confession trembled in the air. Ariana said nothing, afraid her voice might break. "I chose certainty," Lucia continued. "I chose logic. I chose everything I thought I wanted." Her eyes filled with tears. "And none of it felt right." Ariana's heart pounded painfully. "Then why did you leave?" Lucia swallowed hard. "Because loving you meant losing control. And I was terrified." Silence. Raw, honest, real. Lucia slowly raised her hand, revealing her finger. "I don't understand destiny," she whispered. "But no matter how far I went, something kept pulling me back to you." Ariana's breath trembled. "The red string," she said softly. Lucia shook her head gently. "No, my choice." She stepped closer. "This time I choose you." Tears slipped down Ariana's cheeks, not from pain, but from the overwhelming release of everything she had held inside. "For so long I believed fate would bring you back," she whispered. "But love isn't just destiny. It's courage." Lucia nodded. "I'm ready to be brave." For the first time, they closed the distance without hesitation. Their hands found each other naturally, fingers intertwining like they had always belonged together. The warmth that spread between them felt familiar but deeper now. Stronger, tested by loss and distance. The thread had not controlled them. It had guided them, and they had chosen each other. Life did not suddenly become perfect. Love never is. There were still fears to face, differences to understand, and wounds to heal. Lucia still struggled with uncertainty, and Ariana still believed too easily in destiny. But now they walked forward together, not bound by fate alone, but by choice. The bookstore slowly transformed. Lucia helped manage its structure and business, bringing order where Ariana once lived only in feeling. Ariana continued painting, her art now filled with red threads, no longer stretched by distance but gently woven, between two figures standing side by side. Balance, logic and belief, mind and heart, choice and destiny. One quiet evening, beneath a sky painted with the colors of sunset, Ariana tied a thin red ribbon around Lucia's finger. "A reminder," she said softly. Lucia smiled, holding her hand. "Of destiny?" Ariana shook her head gently. "Of us choosing each other again and again." Lucia tightened her grip. "That's something I can believe in." Some say the red string connects souls destined to meet, but Ariana and Lucia learned something more. The thread may bring two hearts together, but love is what keeps them tied. And when destiny and choice walk hand in hand, the red string never breaks. Some connections are invisible. Some threads are untouchable. Ariana and Lucia's story reminds us that love is not always easy. It tests, it stretches, it challenges us. But sometimes the most beautiful love is the one we choose, even when the world tries to pull us apart. Fate may guide us, destiny may call us, but it's our courage, our choices, and our hearts that decide who we truly belong with. The red string never breaks. It only waits for us to be brave enough to follow it. And in following it, we sometimes find the person we were always meant to find.